Unacceptable time and space visitors. You are here. John didn't turn his head and looked into the vast woods at a distance. When I heard such familiarity, Agner suddenly remembered when they met his brother. The conversation between them could not help it but smile. Well, I am coming, Angel said as he pointed to the ointment on the table. The dumb servant waved his hand at Angel. Angel sighed helplessly, picking up the ointment and went to sit next to John. Instructor, you don't need to follow the doctor's advice. Agner unscrewed the lid of the glass bottle and applied the thick green ointment to John's already dry limbs. It doesn't matter if you don't rub it, John had a trace of nostalgia and sadness in his eyes. I'm going to die. It will not let me live anymore. Who is it? Angel looked around with vigilance. Is it the enemy of the mentor? John separated for a while and shook his head. There is no enemies. My enemies are in another time and space. As soon as the tutor wants another time and space, Agnor subconsciously supports making the dumb servant leave, even if the dumb servant can't speak, but just in case, whenever the tutor talks around the past, Agnor will let the dumb servant leave. According to the origins of the mentor, Agnor still felt they were incredible. John comes from another world or another planet. Because of the accidents, John crossed from his hometown to this strange land. After John crossed over, he was rescued by Agner's father, and this was followed. Agner did not believe in crossing, but with John teaching him more and more knowledge and establishing his understanding of the micro and macro world, Agner had to believe, because the knowledge that John taught him, although it is only a conceptually false space, there is no real knowledge of practice. It is just the data that Agner calculated himself, and it was always worthwhile to know and find out how valuable this knowledge is. It is far beyond the current education level of the Goldfinch Empire. Now, even though he had doubts in his heart, he was slightly convinced that John was right. After seeing the dumb servant close the door and slamming his footsteps down the stairwell, Agner said softly, What is it? That the tutor said. John was silent for a while, but he asked Agner for a word. Do you believe that the world will have a conscience? Agner was stunned by this problem. After thinking for a moment, what is the teacher's world consciousness? Gaia consciousness, world consciousness. The Golden Bird Empire naturally does not have the saying. There is no such thing as the mother of Earth, Gaia. The concept of Gaia was actually told to him by John. At the same time, he only listened to John's rhetoric as a myth of another world, knowing John would suddenly ask. Similar. John nodded very little. Before, I was a person who believed in science. Even if one said the end of science is God, I never believed. But in this world, I feel more and more that something is changing. There is a part about Gaia's consciousness. John's eyes looked at the distant mountains. My body, after coming to this world, is inextricably, inexhaustible. I let the parasitic chip through my body test my body without any traces of disease. That is it. I am not sick. Now, Agner did not understand what the parasitic chip was, but John's word, he understood it. Since you are not sick, then why? Agner looked at John, who looked almost shrunk into a skinny body, and wondered more. John's age is only in his early 50s, but his appearance is not suspicious, even if others say that he is 80 or 90 years old. Why would I have this look? John whispered to himself. He suddenly... Sorry, pause. Why would I have become this look? John whispered, as he whispered to himself but shook his head. You asked me 6 months ago. I can't answer this question, but as I am about to step into the grave, it seems to be a lot of relief. And let me indirectly understand the source of my illness. Source? Ingrid looked at John without understanding. Like I said, Gaia's consciousness, before, I guess. The world may have a huge collection of consciousness. It's different and just operational. It rejects all external souls. It is the consciousness of the world. And this body of illness may be its masterpiece. John turned to look at Ingrid. In short, my body is like this, but it's just not acclimatized because I am not in this world at all. Under the gorgeous main hall, under the chandelier of crystal glass, there is one person sitting on either side of the long square table. Behind the two sitting, there are also several knights armed with armor and weapons. On the left is the next generation heir to Pat, who is close to his eyebrows. Leon Pat. On the right is a silver colored bearded man with a brown face and a blank face. Eaton. Eaton Mon, Earl's title from the spine of the Jinke Empire. The Mengan family, the family has been inherited for hundreds of years. It is known for bravery and good warfare. Nowadays, a large number of elites of this family, also known as the Mun family, are fighting against the Haishu County on their front line. Now, it is not known why Count Earl suddenly comes to the town of Gru. Half a sigh of silence. The two sides of cavaliers confronted each other when momentum rose higher and higher. The Mun family is a warrior family after all. The knight's momentum quickly suppressed the support of Pat Manor, and even a knight could not stand the pressure to loosen the sword in his hand, jingle sturdy on the floor. Now, when Leon saw it, his brow was slightly wrinkled, and he could only take the lead. Forgive me, my knight does not understand the rules. Leon waved his hand, and the cavaliers immediately bowed and saluted and then stepped back. This simple action will not underestimate the momentum of previous cavaliers. The Earl of Eaton suddenly visited. Is it for the front line? Nowadays, the two countries are engaged in war. Although the Haishu country is not big, its land is basically an empire. In the gap between the Blue Sea and the Storm Sea, it is scattered like a star. The Jinka naval battle capacity is not strong. For the invasion of Haitang, it can only be deployed on the coastline and passively defended. The defense of Gru has been for a long time, and the water resources and its lack of SH are added. The later supply of fresh water is naturally shared between several towns. Gru is a part of this supply chain. The supply of the front line is all the responsibility of Pat Manor, so the ordinary townspeople may not know about this. But as owner of Pat Manor, how can Leon not know? In the past few months, it has been thanks to the strong support of Pat Manor. Otherwise, our pioneer camp will not supply. Eden thanked him for a turn. There is not a problem with the supply of water. I came here today and actually wanted to ask you one thing. Why are you here asking? Leon raised his eyebrows. Eaton smiled, but the beard covered his face and it was not appropriate. However, Leon did not see the smile in Eaton's eyes. I don't know, Viscount Pent. Have you heard of Mountain Dew after the rain?